What's up, people? Frank Kingsley. Let's talk about Nigeria for a bit today. We don't always have to discuss about matters that are not important towards the development of this great nation. It is true that we are united today. There are higher possibility that we could go our separate ways in the future. But as long as we are Nigerians, we have to be united, and by being united, would have the ability to bring about solutions to the problems that are facing us right now. So I remain Frank Kingsley, and on this one, I will be sharing some information as to where we are today and where we should be, where we ought to be. And so you don't need to be told that we are in a very bad situation or a very bad position as of today. We are in 2022, and the situation in Nigeria is extremely depressing, and that is not a good omen. It is not a good thing to write home about. And that is one of the reasons why I believe that matters as such should be things that we should be discussing. And since the 2023 election is fast approaching, I think matters as such would go a lot of way in helping people understand what truly needs to be told. And on this one, I believe that most of you must have watched one or two of my videos. I don't like beating around the bush as to what I say. I say what I believe is humanly possible and not things that you would expect me to say. And at the end of the day, they are nowhere to the reach of humans. In the same way, we need to find motivation. In the same way, we need to find the solution. We need to give ourselves reasons as to why we have to seek for those solutions, why we have to seek for that motivation. And by doing so, it will become even more clearer as to the path that we are heading towards. The matter of Nigeria is something that should be very important to anyone who happens to be a citizen of the country, regardless of the position of which you find yourself. Your contribution, your little contribution, would go a lot of way in helping change the narrative as the concept of how people tend to see the country, as to how politicians tend to run political affairs. Let us assume that we know the issues at hand. What kind of implementation would you recommend? Of course, it is a fact that we all understand that we do have a very bad infrastructure in this part of the world. It is not just a Nigerian thing. In fact, traces of Nigeria can be found within the west and the eastern part of Africa. Traces of bad government, saboteurs in government, handling the affairs of a nation, diverting public funds that is meant to better the nation. We've experienced cases of diverting public funds into foreign institutions and impoverishing our own people and enriching the foreign countries. And we've seen cases as such. We've seen cases of missing money without accountability. And the case of corruption spikes high, like it is a good doctrine that needs to be accepted. You've seen cases where people are being denied the basic amenities that should not be a problem by first hand. And we all can attest to the fact that we do have a lot of poor facilities. And there is a fact that most of the vet clinics or the vet hospitals that can be found in the first and the second world countries are much more equipped than the hospitals that are available for the average population in not just Nigeria but in the western part of Africa. There is also a fact that the Nigerian educational system cannot be found in the rankings of the best institutions in the world. And it tells you the level of deterioration in the Nigerian educational system. If we want to move forward as a nation, we have to place a lot of emphasis on everything that is important. And I find the educational system to be one of the most important in Nigeria. Then we can talk about electricity, which is one of the most essential basic amenities a government should put in place for the people. And we all can attest to the fact that the idea of constant electricity in Nigeria, it eludes us. And that most times when you look at most of the third world countries that have constant electricity, you tend to wonder why the case of Nigeria is entirely different. The importance of electricity, I think it is self-explanatory. You don't have to be told the importance, how important electricity is. So I think it is self-explanatory. It improves the quality of life and also make life easier for those who tend to use it for productive means. So electricity is one of the most essential basic amenities, and I think it should be easily distributed and not the opposite. The rate of power outage in Nigeria is enormous, big enough to kill a dream. And we should also understand not everybody is as courageous as others. Some people need to be motivated to go about their daily activities. And one of the ways you can motivate people is to create the basic amenities that is much needed by the people. And electricity is one of those things that I think is essentially important. Essential and important, I think they are both the same. What I'm trying to say is it is very important to have electricity because it would motivate people who are very skilled. And most people who are skilled are not they are not motivated as others. I think the idea of being motivated varies from one person to another. But the idea of having constant electricity can trigger an idea on most people, and that will bring about the kind of productivity that you would expect from a very young Nigerian population. Recently, a case of very embarrassing power outrage was actually witnessed at the Murtala Mohammed Airport. Just assume that you happen to be a foreigner coming to Nigeria, because I bet a majority of Nigerians would not be surprised at that embarrassing incident. But let's assume that you are a foreigner coming to Nigeria. For whatever your reasons could be, it could be that you are an investor and you ended up experiencing such as a false impression. Tell me, what would be your reaction? I don't know how they would react, but I can tell you it's going to be very scary. There are so many negative things going on about this country, from the official to the unofficial minimum wage, to the value that is being placed on the educators and the educational institution in the country. We also do not want to talk about the cost of running a government that is destined to fail. You know, when you say a government, you know that this government is destined to fail. I can tell you that is how I have been seeing the Nigerian government. You don't need to be told, you don't need to be lied to. You can see the reflection from the beginning of the administration and from the kind of people we end up electing as leaders. You could see that they are destined to fail. Let us take this imaginary picture and ask ourselves this question: how does it feel to plan to fail? Does it feel like the United States of America? Does it feel like Kuwait? Does it feel like Qatar? Does it feel like the United Arab Emirates? Does it feel like China? Or does it feel like Nigeria? I can tell that you yourself, you already know the answer to this question. And it is very sad, a very sad one indeed. Also, I would like to state that Africans, Nigerians, we do have an issue. We have an issue of accepting the truth that is right in front of us. We have a very serious issue in accepting the truth that is right in front of us. We like being lied to. And I think that has brought us to this point of which we find ourselves today. Again, if you are someone that likes being lied to, the chances, or should I say, on every decision you make, there is a higher probability that you would end up getting disappointed. It is as simple as that. As long as you prefer to stick with the lies that is being thrown at you, probably people would see this as a good thing for themselves because they will be taking advantage of your unwillingness to accept the truth. And that is why, on every occasion, when you've decided not to accept the truth, you would end up getting the kind of disappointment that you deserve. So, Nigerians, Africans, learn to accept the truth. Don't always try to beat around the bush because you want to feel better by accepting lies that will take you nowhere. By now, we must be accustomed in seeing old men and women playing partisan politics in a country that is fast decaying, that needs urgent help, notwithstanding the failure of religion in the society, the failure to impact people positively. As a matter of fact, Nigeria, being the most religious country in the whole wide world, as long as Christianity and Islam is concerned, the people also have their own problems. But I think for every great nation, it all starts with a government that wants to work. We can all talk about the people. The people are important. Without the people, there is no nation. But it all starts with a government that motivates the people, that creates the environment that would motivate the people, that would make productivity, implementations of ideas easier for the people. And I think in Nigeria, we can all attest that we can see the opposite of all this. The people also have their problems, but for every great nation, you have a government that wants to create change. We can talk about a system of government. Of course, the system of government is very important as to how a government is being run. Now that we have touched so much about the problems that are facing us, let us assume again that you are asked a question: what country should Nigeria look up to as a source of inspiration, as a country that should be a place where we want to be in the foreseeable future? Should we look up to the United States of America, or should we look up to Canada, or should we look up to Singapore, the United Arab Emirates, or should we look up to Qatar? Nations that are regarded as the first world countries, they are operating on a higher level, and their ways of implementations might not benefit us. And if you try to fit yourself in their story, you would get yourself burnt. So we have to look at countries with similar stories as to where they were, where they are at the moment, as a source of inspiration as to where we want to be in the foreseeable future. It is also important to note that I would choose stories that are not too far away from reach, stories that are very much recent, because the recentness of the story would be beneficial because we are actually trying to extract information from a story or inspiration from a story that occurred in the same time and age. So I would go with China if I am aiming high towards an achievable scope, and also Singapore if I am not trying to aim too high, but still the end result will be exceptional because Singapore is one of the best countries in the world. The story of that country is quite interesting, and anyone who have heard about the story of Singapore, trust me, it is mind blowing. And I think we can learn one or two, and that is why I talked about China and Singapore, because their story happens to be the most recent, and it can be applied with what we want and the place we want to be in the foreseeable future. Qatar and United Arab Emirates, they have something in common, but when you look at China, they are the most populous country in the world, while Nigeria is the most populous in Africa. So at least we have one thing in common. And Nigeria, like you know, is they are industrious, regardless of the fact that the government have not been putting measures that will benefit the people and actually motivate people to be more industrious. So I can tell you that when you look at Nigeria and you look at China, you find out that we have something in common, and that is relatable in one way or the other. So that is why one of the reasons why I would go with China. Then the other reason why I would go with China is because the result is there for all to see. You don't need someone to explain to you the changes, or should I say the transformation, the massive transformation that can be seen, that can be found in China as of today. Again, when you look at the United States and Canada, you find out that they are look-alike, one of the best countries in the world to be in, actually. But when you try to understand that, trying to make Nigeria look like these countries that has a high level of sophistication, not just for the people, but also for immigrants in those nations, you would find out that Nigeria would have a lot of reforming to do and reorientation of the mind. And I think that is going to be bloody, it's going to be hectic, it's going to be complicated, because the reorientation of the mind alone does not just start by implementation. One of the ways you can reorientate, you can create reorientation for people's the way people tend to think, is by creating jobs for people, giving them reasons to go about being productive during the course of the day. But the idea of the system of running a government in the United States and Canada is entirely different. I think China is one way. The way when you look at China, the first thing that comes to you is productivity, production, industrialization, and I think that is what Nigeria need as of today, because the African market is very big, and anyone who is very young in the idea of productivity, productions, and all that can take advantage of the African market. And I think Nigeria is the closest you can get to Africa. And so I would go with China, Singapore, because there are similarities in their story that we can actually implement in our own stories as well. Now, it is true that the Chinese government are not as diverse as the United States government, as the Canadian government. But one thing about the Chinese government I can tell you is that the amount of reform, the amount of transformation that they have been able to achieve in a short period of time, I can tell you it is mind blowing. And they wouldn't have been able to achieve this without their idea of production. Production. It is all about productivity for the Chinese people. And that is why I will stick with China and Singapore, because these two places happens to be the most recent places that you will be to. And if you've been to China at least 30 years ago or 20 years ago, and you end up visiting China in 2022, you'll be very, very amazed with the level of transformation in a short period of time. So that is why I would go with China, because it is all about productivity, and their way is very easy for anyone to understand. Productivity, and by creating productivity, industrialization, and improvement of infrastructure, you create jobs for people, and that is one of the ways you can bring out a lot of people out of poverty. The Chinese have one thing no government or no country can beat at the moment: industrialization, built upon a well planned infrastructural roadmap that we can attest that no country in the world can match what China have been able to achieve at the period that it did. In China, you would see the rigidness, the solidity, you see the consistency, the determination in a country, not just in the government, in also the people. And going back in time, when I talked about China, going back in time, I talked about the reorientation of the mindset of the people. You see, China did not just start by trying to change the mindset of people, they started by creating industrialization, and that would give people an identity and give people the purpose, give people reasons, not to give excuses. Okay, they did not start by saying you have to change your mindset whatsoever. They started by giving people reasons to be busy. They give people reasons to be productive, people reasons to be creative, and by so doing they ended up creating this reorientation as well on the process. So they you only have a few people who disagree with the government that is actually working. So we can learn from China, but not to compete with them at the international level. Uh, we can start by creating the infrastructural monuments as a stepping stone, produce what we use, which will in turn reduce the rate of importation and increase the rate of the cost of importation, and as well increase the rate of exportation. The African market, I think, is a lifeline for anyone that wants to change the story of any nation. And we are the closest to Africa and can create an attractive market that will not only discourage the high rate of outward forex usage, it will improve the economy of a nation on a long run. Of course, it will come with a cost. Surely it will. It will be massive, but not massive that it should discourage us from actually pursuing that which is truly what we need to pursue. I think the industrialization sector in Nigeria needs to come back to life. I think it is very important. It will place us in the world of producers, and that means we will surely attract foreign investors that will love to take advantage of the young, promising nature of our market. And also, this will definitely drastically reduce the rate of unemployment. And by empowering people, you give them reasons, I think, to believe in your ideas, and they will understand to put the interests of the country first before any other. I think these are the things that we should understand, that most of the countries that you see today at the top level, they committed a lot of sacrifice were made. And until we understand the need to make those sacrifices, I think we would not get to that point. That is the principle in UAE, in United Arab Emirates, in China, in America, in Canada, in most of the European countries. That is the principle. And every successful nation put the interest of the nation, the interest of the people first. And like we all know, there is no nation without the people. So the interest of the people should come first. You heard that from Donald Trump. You've seen that to be a case with China. They always put the interest of the nation first. You could understand most times people try to attribute that to the government, but it is all about the nation. No nation without the people. So you have to put the interest of the nation, the interest of the people first. Now, it is very important to note that this is my opinion, my personal opinion. You are free to believe in whatever you want to believe in, but you don't have to forget that you have to put the interest of a nation, the interest of the people around you first. And that is, if you find yourself in the public domain, you have to put the interest of the nation first, because it is very important. And by doing so, I think you would understand better moving forward. And now that we have gotten to this point, the next question should be, we are actually fast approaching the 2023 elections. And the question should be, who is the right person for this job? And I think as Nigerians, we have a very big decision to make, and one that might change the story of this nation, and a nation that was once described as promising. So, guys, this is where I will call it a day. I would love to elaborate more, but this is where I would have to put an end to this whole informative video, because I think with the information that I have provided, I think it will go a long way in helping people understand what we need to know. Let's forget about this whole agenda from the media about a certain nation. Let's make our research ourselves and get the informations ourselves. And by getting those information, I think we can end up in making right decisions that will benefit us as collective people of a country. So I would leave it here, and I hope you all have a nice time. Bye.